How's it going, my G's? It's Artifact. Today we're going to be making a bass line like yourself. For those of you who don't know yourself, he's an up-and-coming producer from Norway. He's recently had a track released on Take All Your Money Records, and he's actually his latest track has got 33,000 comments on his SoundCloud. And they're all from Eastern European supermodels. So that's really exciting. Also, if you go into his Instagram stories and watch them, you'll actually be transported into a metaverse where the only way out is to unmatch yourself from 9 women in Bangkok who are 39,000 miles away. Anyway, today we're going to make a bass line like yourself because you make the best bass lines, don't you? So let's get into the video. Bass. Line. Bass. Line. So both of these basses are made from my voice, which I just recorded to say these words here. Bass. Line. Okay. And the idea, of course, of this video is to just help those of you who haven't quite jumped over the fence to understand that you can really make a sound from anything. And also, you should focus on sound design as a whole and textures and movement and these kind of things as your inspiration, rather than trying to copy and exact other person's sound, because there's so many infinite possibilities. Why limit yourself, and why not focus more on, you know, the movement that you're after, the texture that you're after, the rhythm, the melody, you know, all of these things. You can get really, really in depth on, you know, these kind of aspects of sound yourself, and then you'll probably be able to come up with something new. So anyway, I thought, you know, let's use the bass as a little call, and then make a response sound using that same audio, and then I'll do the line, and then I'll have a response bass again using that audio. So I've made 2 vital instances, one using the bass and one using the line. And I've literally just got a couple of like a drum break and some percussion in there just to fill out the background, and then we do a bit of post-processing afterwards. But if we take a look firstly at the bass, what I've done with my vocal is I've just pitched them down a bit and put some reverb on. I've mixed in an octave lower on the pitch, so it kind of sounds a bit darker. Bass. Line. So you can kind of hear this pitched down sort of part to the sound as well. So let's start off with the bass, and there's no processing on the actual individual bass channels, but if we have a little listen here. Bass, 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 bass. So this is the bass, and in the MIDI, I've basically just drawn in sort of, I think there's sort of 60 or 8th notes. Yeah, and I'm doing this on both the bass and the line. And yeah, so I started off by throwing in the sample here. Bass, 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 bass. Yeah, and now we're going to frequency modulate this into a sine wave which is at -9. Bass, 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 bass. You can hear without it, it's quite nice already, but when we add the FM, bass, bass, you start to get that sort of grittiness, like your nan's carpet on a Friday evening. Bass, bass. What I've done is I've detuned it, bass, 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 to 3 voices. Bass, bass, bass. Give it that stereo spread, and then once we add this into another sine wave, down at -24. Bass, bass, bass. Obviously FMing from oscillator 1. Bass, 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 bass. That's really nice. If I take that, bass, 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 that stereo off, it's a completely different movement. So it's always the movement is coming from the detuning, and also you could do it here as well with the pitch. That's going to create the, you know, the way that the oscillators move and the FM amount, and that will change the tone as well. So you got this this nice like texture here. And yeah, that's pretty much the main section there. I turned this off at the beginning, but then I thought I'd reintroduce it. And then in the effects, we've literally just got like a bit of chorus default, compressor sort of default, but turned the attack and the release up and taken down the high a little bit. Just gives it 5 or 10% push. Then I've got a little delay on, just at 8ths, very, very small in the mix. A little bit of soft clipping on the drive, a tiny bit of reverb. And that's pretty much the bass one. Nice and simple there. Bass. Line. So let's move on to the line, which is perhaps a little bit more interesting. Definitely different texturally, but it's the exact same process. But we're just sort of changing the pitching of the oscillators, essentially, and a little bit of extra filtering. Gefilter fish. He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3. Ooh. Anyone who asks me to make a bass like Dillinger won't be in Rush Hour 3. Not that Dillinger makes bad basses, they're amazing. It's just we're going to make new sounds, all right? Okay, so chorus, delay, compressor, distortion, reverb, EQ, filter. It's a lot on there, but line. Starting with line, and then this is a bit more aggressive and grittier than the previous bass, which your nan really enjoyed. She wants it harder. So this one is a squared off sine wave, which is a bit more powerful than a normal sine wave. I've gone for 4 voices, FMing the sample quite a lot, so you get more of that high-end texture coming through from the vocal. Then we're gonna FM this into a second one down here, -12 from FM oscillator 1. See, that's quite a nice texture there in the mid-range. Even lower like that is pretty nice. An octave lower actually sounds almost better. Anyway, to put a bit more movement in, I've got a filter here on the phaser positive. And I'm just modulating the mix on this on a sort of quick LFO here, LFO2, just trigger 8th notes. Just to add a bit of interest and movement into the sound. If I wanted to go in more detail with these basses, I'd probably randomize a few things around as well. But it's just a quick video for you guys today. A bit of chorus then. I've gone for a ping pong delay, so it's a bit stereoed because it was kind of a bit empty, the tail. I wanted to like boost the tail a little bit. And the release, I turned up the release a little bit as well. Then I've distorted it quite differently because it's the sine fold instead of the soft clipping. And sometimes particular distortions just work well on some sounds and sometimes they don't. And you just easily switch between them to find out what's going to work well for your sound. I will say the soft clipping is the cleanest one that usually always works for a bit of subtle saturation. But the linear fold and the sine fold are the ones to introduce extra growly harmonics that sometimes work and sometimes don't. This one's quite nice with the sine fold. Then I've got my reverb on at the end. And I've got a little bit of a mid-range push here, or low-mid push on the EQ. And then, did I filter it as well? Yes. So on this sort of bass line here, if you notice, the pitch is actually going up. So all I did for that was I used an LFO1, slow sort of ramping up here, and that's just tracked to the overall global pitch at +3. So right click, enter value, 3. So it's going to go up 3 semitones over the course of this. Sort of starts just above 0 and then goes up to 3. And then the same thing I've done on the filter. So I've got a gefilter fish. I've got a low pass filter, gefilter fish, and it opens up gefilter slowly over the gefilter space of vortex, time, landscape. Yeah, the filter opens up while the pitch also goes up, so that's providing like the interest in the movement. I guess it's the tone, the opening up of the tone of the sound, and also the melody is increasing a bit, so it's a bit more interesting. Where the first one is just like straight always, you know. So in a sense, they call and response from each other, and where the pattern is the same, I had to sort of make it different. And but I wanted to keep the pattern the same because I was lazy. So the way that I made it different was to filter it to open and also to pitch it to come up. So that's making it, contrast to the first bass. Anyway, so add those together again then. Bass. And I'm not saying this is like a amazing loop or track. I'm just saying that this took me about 5 minutes, and they're quite cool and interesting basses, and I didn't have to, try to emulate someone else. I literally just used my own voice and then just like fiddled with settings, and that was it. And I know that way, like, you can think about like another cool thing that I've done before in another track. That's an old track of mine called Gaslight, and like I really wanted to get this like chugging bass rhythm, and it actually came from like a Led Zeppelin track. Like I actually thought, how can I make this like rock riff into like a D&B kind of bass? And so like if you do stuff like that, that's not like like emulating other producers like within the scene. Like this is a drum and bass production channel mostly, right? But obviously have other producers on here because I do sound design in general. But for those of you on here who are like D&B producers, try to like steer away from other producers in the scene, because it will help you separate yourself more when you're able to like draw influences from somewhere else. And because of sound design and like tools like Vital being so like awesome and easy to make anything, you can be a bit more creative with where you get your influences from, and then just try something different and random and new, like using your own voice or trying to emulate some complete other musical instrument in the synth. And then if you're making D&B, just put it to a D&B beat, and you'll hopefully come up with something more interesting and new that hasn't been done before. So so a little bit of post-processing then. I've just put these basses both into a group, and then I added a little bit of white noise kind of on top with the ring mod from Kilohertz. Bass. And then I love, and I use this in my mastering chain as well. It's one of the plugins that I use out of quite a bunch, but I really like the bite mode. Bass. Yeah, it's a nice clean way to sort of boost the treble, I find. And you can overdo it. You can definitely overdo it, but yes, on basses it's quite nice. It seems to leave the low end quite intact most of the time. And then I've got a bit of a channel EQ with a bit of side bass, taking out the low sides, and then literally just a sprinkle of reverb just to put everything into the same room. And that's it, really. Bass. Yeah, so I won't upload these presets because I want to encourage you to just try your own. But yeah, record your voice. You can say anything. Turkey, fish, rush hour, Chris Tucker, Lizard King. There's loads of words out there you can use, and each word that you use will have a different texture. And when you FM that into a sine wave, it will sound a bit different each time. So try using your own voice, and yeah, try thinking about how to emulate a bass after a particular piano melody. Play that in, and then make a bass around that, or think about like a guitar riff, try and like do something with a similar movement to that. But yeah, because music is so broad, and you can, with synthesis, you can, the more crazy and outlandish and weird you can be with your ideas for inspiration, the better, more interesting sounds you'll come up with. When you can sort of take those ideas and rein them in a little bit, and make them a bit more simplified. Start big and then sort of simplify it. Then you'll have the best result, in my opinion. Anyway, I am about to finish my set list for a show in Hamburg this weekend, which I'm super excited for. If you're in that area, come along and see it. If not, I'll be back with some more sound design videos ASAP. Have a wicked day, guys.